Christianity seems to find sex sinful. Procreation is a big part of it.
You said that Christianity claims sex is bad? If you read the Song of Solomon, Christianity does not lead to LGBTQ prejudice.
10% of sheep are homosexual and have long-term homosexual relationships. They don't know they're sinning.
Really love to see your research on that. I'm talking anyway. So you can laugh at it all you want. I am a man of science. I want to follow what the science says, not my personal feelings. So I think you should consider that possibility.
In any case, now I'll talk about I'll make points I thought I'd make, which is, so the title is Christianity and Secular Ethics, which is better for society? I'm a scientist, so I tend to do things empirically, and I think the answer is therefore extremely clear. We've had 2,000 years, we've had Christian ethics for 2,000 years, okay, at least. But it's the liberal Enlightenment that made the modern world what it is. We had 1,500 years or so of Christianity before the liberal secular Enlightenment, and then we had 500 years of liberal secular Enlightenment. The Enlightenment, teaching us, among other things, that we're not separate than animals, that we have a common ancestor. And that changed treatment of animals, okay? I happen to be a vegetarian, partly because I don't like torturing animals. And that's a product of secularism. But it also taught us that all humans have common ancestors, that we are humans, and we share a humanity, not an us versus them. The Enlightenment has taught us, therefore, that we should treat all other humans like we'd want to treat ourselves. The realization that women are not chattel did not come from Christianity, it came from the Enlightenment. The realization that homosexuality is completely natural. The realization that, say, for example, 10% of sheep are homosexual and have long-term homosexual relationships, they don't know they're sinning. The realization that sex is actually biological, it's not evil. The realization that humans are complicated. They're not good or evil, they're just complicated. They have good and evil aspects, and we all do things that are, some people would be called good, some people would be called evil, but we're very complicated. Human beings are not purely rational, not purely emotional. That makes us interesting. That makes life interesting. The realization that there's no such thing as original sin. What a disgusting idea to teach children, that there's original sin, that they're born in sin. That is child abuse. We are all blank slates. We have the potential to do amazing things, and that potential is something we should nourish. The realization that we can be wrong, and that we should actually cherish that fact. That, in fact, we don't know the answers to the questions before we even ask them, which is really what religion's all about, being absolutely right. The realization that we answer to no one, ultimately outside of ourselves. There's no cosmic dictator or scorekeeper keeping score of what we're doing. We have to do that for ourselves.
I want to remind you and everyone of the debate. The debate is not what we don't like about Christianity or what secularism. The debate is about the effects, which is better for society. I gave clear scientific studies. You said that you think they're debunked. I'd really love to see your research on that. I'm talking anyway. You'll have your time later. No, none of these studies have been debunked, and that's why I cited several finding similar results, including systematic reviews and meta-analyses. So we need to keep that in mind. You spent a lot of time arguing that original sin is disgusting in child abuse. What research shows that the belief in original sin leads to harmful effects is what I would want to ask you. You may not like this, but if you actually read some historians of science, Noah J. Ephron, James Ungariano, Edward Grant, they'll tell you, surprisingly, the belief in original sin was crucial for the development of the scientific method. You can read Of Popes and Unicorns by James Ungariano, Noah J. Ephron's chapter, and Galileo Goes to Jail and Other Myths. They point out is that the idea of original sin convinced a lot of early scientists that they were fallible. They had to keep doing constant experimentation to verify their results. And they conclude that belief and other Christians' belief helped develop science, including the scientific method. So you should be thanking Christianity and the doctrine of original sin. You mentioned things like, you said liberalism, Enlightenment has made the world what it is, and the only person you cited was Jonathan Rauch. Well, Rauch isn't an historian. He's a journalist. Let's see what actual historians have to say. Tom Holland says the evolution of the concept of human rights, mediated as it has been since the Reformation by Protestant jurists and philosophers, has come to obscure its original authors. It derived not from the ancient Greeks of Rome, but from the period of history condemned by all right-thinking revolutionaries as a lost millennium. It came from the canon lawyers of the Middle Ages. Samuel Moyne says the thesis of his book, Christian Human Rights, is that this is a project of the Christian right, not the secular left. Brian Tierney, in his book, The Idea of Natural Rights, says the humanistic jurisprudence of the 12th century, especially the writing of the medieval Decritus, may provide a better starting point for the investigation in the origin of natural right theories than either the 14th century nominalists or the capitalists of the early modern world, okay? And you can go back to writers like Godfrey of Fontenines for that, as well as William of Ockham for that kind of stuff. So actually, no. Human rights, as historians will note, came out of the development of Christianity. And you say we have Christian ethics for 2,000 years. This is a straw man. This is an oversimplification. As Tom Holland says, Christianity was like a depth charge. It took time for Christian ethics to slowly spread and saturate the culture. It didn't just, by the time of Constantine, okay, there was only 10% Christians in the world at that point. When the Muslim invaders are coming through, they're going to cities like Karhai, and they're finding more pagans still there. Pagan temples were open to like the 900s. It took time for Christianity to spread. At the founding of this nation, only 17% of people belonged to a church, according to people like Rodney Stark, who's a sociologist. So the idea that Christianity just took over 2,000 years is absurd, non-historical nonsense. It took time for these things to happen. So he says missionaries destroyed societies. Okay, that doesn't come up in the research. I can cite so many studies on this. Like, for example, Robert Woodbury's work. Read papers like The Shadow of the Empire, The Missionary Roots of Liberal Democracy, where he knows missionaries actually went in and they stopped colonial powers from abusing native people. You can read stuff like Protestant missionaries are associated with Protestant missionaries undermine political authority, ? Evidence from Peru. You can also look at things like the long-term effects of Protestant activity in China, competitive religious entrepreneurs, Christian missionaries, and female education in colonial and post-colonial India. Okay, the reason why the world is so educated and healthy has a lot to do with what Protestant missionaries went out and did. There's a lot of research on this. You said that Christianity claims sex is bad. If you read the Song of Solomon, sir, I think you should read that. Might learn something there. No, and let me remind you what I said in my opening statement. I did not say that higher birth rates are necessarily better. I specifically said you have to have at least a sustainable birth rate. Secular societies cannot produce those. Only religious societies do. Okay, so yes, Muslim societies, Hindu societies, Christian societies, they have sustainable birth rates. That's a base for them looking to see if they're actually good. What do they produce after that? Secularism can't even get over that hurdle because it can't generate progress for multiple generation. That's a problem. You mentioned homosexuality. Again, you need to study the research on this. Christianity does not lead to LGBTQ prejudice. And let me cite you some work. So how right-wing authoritarianism mediates the relationship between Protestant religious denominations and attitudes towards homosexuality. There's also a great paper called Unpacking the Drivers of LGBTQ Legislation, which says, regarding the main setbacks for the promotion of LGBT rights, the empirical results suggest that religious affiliation can act as a cultural constraint in countries where Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism are the most followed religions. Contrarily, religious affiliation does not seem to be constraining LGBTQ plus legislation in Christian majority countries. So this idea that we're going to cause more prejudice, it does not show up in the research there. So you can laugh at it all you want. Yeah. I am a man of science. I want to follow what the science says, not my personal feelings. So I think you should consider that possibility.